What's going on, guys? Reaper here, and welcome to Reaper Declassified. So, as I'm sure many of you can gather, driving a 1970 Chevelle as a daily driver tends to present some problems. Especially when you practically live out in the middle of nowhere like I do, on a dirt road that's really never maintained. So I made the ultimate decision to make a custom skid plate to protect all the vital areas of the undercarriage. Which is something I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and wish I had actually done it a little bit sooner, which you'll see why here in this video.
I got Fat Tony over here doing some metal work for me. Using a grinder to cut out all the pieces we gotta weld together. Neither one of us has gone to bed at all. We were up all night doing stupid as usual, and just stayed up most of the day. Got to working on this shortly after the sun came up. Most of the pieces cut. I gotta have him cut one more out. This is kind of what I'm working on right now. This is gonna be the front piece. I'm gonna angle it up and bring an angled piece up to here and weld it here. A straight piece going actually following the original skid plate. It's gonna go on past the trans pan to the trans member, tie into that. I'm gonna have to make a little spacer here. As you can tell, the core support sticks down over here, so I'll make a spacer here out of some old roll bar tubing I have laying around that maybe later on even cut some pieces to come up through here to the bumper lip. I'm going to keep it pretty thin, actually going to keep it between the exhaust pipes. I got a piece that's coming up to here, coming to that corner and protect things right in here a little bit. Look at Fat Tony over there, a man in his unnatural habitat. Oh God, people, he spotted us. He spotted us. Look at him. He's spooked. I think he's about to run away. Low, about an inch and a half. That'd be just right.
A few inches later.
Yeah, that's right. Is that right there?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably what I'll do is I'll tack it to this first. And I can move it a little bit with the tacks on it and bend it. We'll have to get something under that jack. Let's go ahead and lift that up so it's tight against that skid plate. And I can tack it to that. Well, our day pretty much just ended. The wire welder we were using to tack everything, we only got one tack and it stopped working. Somehow the wire double fed, got stuck in there and it wouldn't feed anymore. So we fucked around with it for a couple hours and we said, it's getting colder out here, so we picked everything up and we're leaving tomorrow morning sometime. So no more time to with it. Try it again later on.
Some time later.
You guys are probably thinking, okay, he's got it up on ramps. Yesterday I went to bring it up the hill and got it stuck in a big old pit of mud down there. If I'd stayed left, I would have made it through it, but the car swished and slid right and got stuck. So Father Time had to come down the truck and pull me out. Well, unfortunately, I forgot to actually come up and tell him, well, just pull me straight out of the mud, which I guess I kind of assumed he would do. And went to pull me up the hill, and unfortunately I don't have a horn, so I can't honk at him, so I was yelling and cursing everything, trying to get his attention. Well, as he's pulling me up the hill, he pulled me over a giant ass rock that shredded my trans pan. In fact, there it is. That's what it did. There's no internal damage, luckily. Missed the oil pan. Skid plate kind of stopped it, but it popped my radiator shroud off, so I've got to put that back on and bolt it up. And I'm going to drop the car off the ramps, pull it over next to the house, and probably go ahead and work a little bit on the skid plate, which I kind of wish I already had on there. So bought a welder as well, picked up some gas and everything on it. Got the trans pan on, most of the trans fluid in it. Something I'd like to stress is that you got extra parts you take off your vehicles, it's not 100%. Keep it, because you never know. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be a year and a half, it could be 2 years. You know, on down the road, you might need the part off of that. So I'm glad I kept the transmission. I had a chance to sell it. I could have sold it, got some money, but I'm happy I didn't, because I needed a part off of it and may need some more parts off of it later. So anyway, got the new welder out here. About a good grand spent on materials this last week. Pretty damn sturdy so far. Got that plate that sits here, and it comes down and it goes down and then follows the main skid plate like I talked about. And like I said, it's gonna go all the way back there past the trans pan and hook up at the trans cross member. So it's just gonna cover the vital parts, the oil pan, you know, part of the shroud, and the belt lines all the way past the trans pan, and covers all that and housing and everything, and just keeps it somewhat safe from rocks. To be honest, if I had this thing on here when we tried to pull it up, probably wouldn't have up the original trans pan, but no biggie. It was a quick fix, you know, cleaned everything up, bolted it on. So probably also gonna drill some holes in it, you know, 2 or 3 here, just so it gets some airflow through it, and maybe even a couple down here, so if it ever gets mud and grime under it, spraying it from the engine bay, you know, it'll all wash it out. And I'm thinking about putting a gusset here, 1 in each corner and then 1 in the center, just to hold that in real tight, so if I do hit anything, it doesn't. I'm going to have to make kind of a little mounting point in the back for the trans cross member. Might even have to weld little brackets to it with some holes drilled in it that I can just directly bolt to it and unbolt it. But I want it to be easily bolted on and unbolted with 4 or 5 bolts. What I got so far, added these, which adds a little protection in this area here. Had to add these for spacers up in here. Where's it? Right there. Because that comes down a little far. To be honest, if I really wanted to go to the extra hassle, I would have bent it up and cut it out and made separate pieces, but I decided against it. Since it's just, you know, that far, if I really need to, I'll put a lip on it. But I'm not too worried about it. You won't be able to see much of it sitting down that low. And it's just for protection anyway. So I've got to add some L brackets back here where I'm going to weld it directly to trans cross member. But I'll drill the holes here and actually have this as a bolt mounting point.
So this is what the skid plate wound up looking like finished, and you can see here that I wound up putting a little ear at the very back of this, which these 2 bolts actually mount into the cross member, which is pre-existing bolt holes that were for part of the mounting of the transmission itself. And of course the 2 front raised portions on both sides. Now as you can see, I didn't wind up drilling any holes in this or adding any gussets. And the reason for that is that I went ahead and did a test fit on it, and went ahead and did some test runs while it was mounted, just to kind of see if anything would heat up or how it would handle. Ultimately it wound up being perfect. I didn't really have any issues with any mud or grease or debris or anything getting stuck on top of it, as it was open enough that things just kind of flowed off. That also, the way that I made it, it basically set up tight against the pre-existing skid plate that's already on the Chevelle. So that gave it all the rigidity it needed, so there was no need to add any gusseting for reinforcement or strength. Now I can honestly say making the skid plate was probably one of the best things I've ever done, especially when driving the Chevelle all the time, up and down and around the roads around here, you know, out in the country, dirt roads, things that aren't hardly ever maintained, and even just regular roads in general. Shortly after putting it on, I wound up hitting the dang armadillo that this thing just completely obliterated. Didn't even scratch or dent the skid plate. Now you guys can see this thing has definitely seen its fair share of use. No dents in it, it's all just surface scratches and everything. And I've hit some pretty gnarly stuff with this thing. It's definitely saved my oil pan and my trans pan and just some of the other vital components under the car itself. Now one thing I think I might do a little later on before putting it back on the car is actually do some reinforcements from maybe this corner up into here, or just in this area to this area on both sides, just to give it a little bit more protection in those areas under the vehicle and around the engine. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I have a whole bunch of other episodes coming out on the 70 Chevelle and some other vehicle related stuff here in the very near future. So if you haven't already, do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and make sure you ring the bell so you can stay up to date with all the new things I've got going on out here. And until next time guys, remember, stay frosty, ride or die, Reaper out.